Welcome to the Menu Mix with me, George Wetz.
And me, Matt Holy.
And on the Menu Mix is a podcast where each week we look at a different leading restaurant group's menu to see the cool and innovative things that we see out there in the market. And we take a look at the psychological and operational considerations that have gone into that company making that particular menu. So
this week, we will be exploring the menu of
drum roll.
Pizza Pilgrims.
That's right.
Now, before we get started, if you like the video and find it insightful, if you could like and subscribe, it really helps the channel out and it would be greatly appreciated. So, jumping right into it, George, tell us a little bit about the background of Pizza Pilgrims.
So, as the name suggests, it's a pizza concept. It's a full-service pizza concept in the United Kingdom, and they are currently at around 23, I think it's correct, 23 locations. Founded about 10 years ago and received some private equity backing about 3 years ago now, and doing really well. Now, Matt, do you know why it's called Pizza Pilgrims?
Well, for one, it just sounds good. I love alliteration, so pizza and pilgrims. But yeah, what is the significance of pilgrims specifically?
I will tell you, Matt. So it all started because two brothers quit their day jobs and they flew down to the toe end of Italy, rented a 3-wheel van and drove all the way back through up Italy, right back to the UK. And on their travels through Italy, they learned everything there was to know about making pizza.
Well, sign me up for that trip.
It was literally a pizza pilgrimage.
That's
so
cool.
That's why they're called Pizza Pilgrims.
Awesome. Love it.
There we go. So should we get into it then?
Let's do it.
Let's start off. So I've now shown you on the screen here the Pizza Pilgrims menu, and what a stunner it is. From a visual design perspective, as you can imagine, we're going to spend a lot of time on the design and aesthetics element of this menu today, because I think for me this is one of the most eye-popping menus that I've seen out there. Would you agree?
Absolutely. This menu is loud, it's bright, there is tons of visual cues. So yeah, let's jump right into it.
What do you want to touch on first then, Matt, on the aesthetic side?
Well,
where do we begin?
I think one of the biggest and most prominent visual cues is actually the eyeball at the bottom of the menu. So it's literally screaming out to you to say, hey, you, like, look down here, use your eyes. And you could see dots coming out of the eye and kind of highlighting Neapolitan pizza. So why do they do this? So Neapolitan pizza, without getting into too much detail, is a very specific type of pizza. Requires a high temperature oven, requires wood, the dough requires a certain time to ferment, and you're only allowed to use certain ingredients like fior di latte, buffalo mozzarella, and burrata, as well as the cheeses. So right off the bat, this is telling the guest that this is not kind of the traditional delivery style pizza. This is Neapolitan. It's high temperature. You'll get the crispy outside. It'll be a little softer in the meat in the middle, but this is a premium pizza. So right off the page, just setting expectations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so we're going to spend a fair amount of time on the visuals there, as I said, but it will also blend into the composition of this menu, because you can see here through the use of drawings and iconography that they've really taken like the ingredients of the pizza onto the menu, and they've sort of merged these two concepts together. So that's one thing we wanted to call out right away. And they actually tell you on the top here their story about a gentleman who spends time doing, he's called Pasquale Di Stefano, and he was famous around Naples for making the actual signs in kind of the market stalls. So they've actually got Mr. Di Stefano to participate in the design of this.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. Huh?
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, kind of what George mentioned, often when we speak with restaurant groups and think about menus in terms of the ACE framework, they have different teams focusing on different elements, and it's really interesting to see this menu. All three elements just seem really cohesive together. One area that would be particularly interesting to call this out is, again, right next to the eye on the bottom of the menu, but to the right side of it, they have these call out bubbles telling guests that they could get their pizza gluten-free, they could get dairy-free cheese, they could get halal ingredients, all for no additional charge. This is, again, just evoking value perception. This is something that is regularly a surcharge at some of their competitor restaurants. And it's really making it known that they welcome everyone, all dietary restrictions. They're kind of here for the guests. So really interesting that they set the tone in this way before you even think about what you're going to order.
One of the themes we were having a discussion before this around how do you read this menu? And we had a difference of opinion before about it. So do you read this menu looking at it? Do you kind of go from left and work your way right? Or do you actually look at the symmetry and does it draw your eye down straight the way to the middle? So do you want to just touch on some of the concepts around different ways that restaurants lay out their menu to take the eye on a different journey?
Yeah, for sure. So first off, whenever a menu is laid out landscape versus portrait, it just allows you to do a little more creative designs with the menu. But what's really interesting is a concept called the golden triangle. So this theory in menu design suggests that the first place that the eye is drawn to is the middle of the page. It will then move to the top right corner of the page, and then from there we'll move to the top left corner of the page, thus creating a golden triangle where you want to promote the dishes that you want your guests to order. So using this concept, the bullseye for the golden triangle is actually where there's a little loop of a spaghetti visual cue that then causes the eye to kind of circle around the carbonara pizza that actually has spaghetti on it. So not only is it one of their more playful pizzas, but the noodle actually circles the price. And this was very, very intentional. In menus, in terms of pricing, there's always what's called an anchor dish. This is a dish that when you see it, it sets the tone for what the price should be for the rest of the menu. Usually, this is one of the most expensive dishes on the menu, but in this case, $13.95, that's the third most expensive pizza that they have offered on the menu. So really interesting. Any pizza that is priced below that seems like great value. And the only pizzas that are priced more expensive than $13.95 are very marginal. So again, feels like really good value, and I believe this was intentional.
Absolutely. And to that point about kind of the overall check, as I first was looking at this menu, as I said, I looked from left to right. And I think one of the things I wanted to call out here was, if you take that view, you go into a pizza restaurant, you're going to order a pizza.
That's right.
So what they've done here is on the left, they've actually got some of the really common upsells right away. So this is to prime your mind psychologically to say, you're going to have a pizza, but what are you going to add to your pizza? What are you going to have with your pizza? And they're quite small ticket items, each of them, but they add up, and they add up pretty quickly. And so one of the things on pricing we wanted to call out was, when you look at the price of the toppings here, this is positioned, again, we think very intentionally, next to the margarita.
It is.
Do you want to talk a bit about the margaritas and why they've called them out as a different section, and what the importance is of these toppings being next to them with regards to average check?
Yeah, for sure. So traditional Neapolitan pizza is really just like plain Jane, tomato sauce, mozzarella, maybe some basil. So what they've done is they've shown you the three classic variations using the different cheeses that you're allowed to use to be classified as classic Neapolitan pizza. So they have fior di latte as the regular margarita. They have the buffalo mozzarella as the margarita extra, and then they actually have burrata as the extra extra. So what's really interesting here is this is actually the base for if you wanted to build your own pizza. That's, you would choose one of those and then you would choose the toppings you want to add. So when looking at these price points, especially if you were to go for the margarita extra extra as an example, you add one of these toppings, you now have the most premium pizza on the menu.
That's it. So going with something simple with just one customization, boom, you're right up there with, yeah, I mean, that's literally, that would make it the most expensive pizza. Small bit of customization, great. And then also on the left and at the start, I wanted to call out, we've got this aperitivo section, which I love because it evokes the Italian way. I mean, I'm a big fan of all things aperitivo. It's my favorite, almost probably my favorite time of day. I would say just before dinner, having a little drink, having a little nibble. So that really, like for me, that emotionally kicks off at, oh yeah, I like this aperitivo style. And what they've done, it's quite interesting, is they haven't split it out by the drinks and then some separate snacks. They've actually combined it all into one. So it's almost saying to you, well, to make an aperitivo, you've got to have both a drink and a snack.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and there's actually some, I guess, biology behind the aperitivo meal period. So the Italians, they obviously know a lot about food and food culture. And the science behind aperitivo as a whole is it's meant to be a meal period before dinner to warm up the appetite. And you'll notice all of the items listed here are either salty or bitter. These are all things that inhibit appetite. So, for example, when you have a classic Negroni or things like an Aperol Spritz, these kind of bitter flavors actually cause the mouth to salivate and actually cause the stomach to start releasing digestive juices. So it almost prepares the stomach, saying like, you're about to have some food, get ready. So a little bit of science behind it. It's really nostalgic, as you said, and just, yeah, a really great way to kick things off when you go to Pizza Pilgrims.
Awesome. Yeah, my favorite piece. So one of the other things, which is both to do with design and psychology, is the pricing on this menu, right? So what you'll notice here is, you know, typically menus either use just round numbers, or they might always use the kind of the 3 digits, or maybe just, you know, the round number and a 0.5. On here, you've got 3 different ways of stating numbers. So you've got, for example, over here, you've got just a 4 for £4. You've got £8.95, and then you've got just a 1 decimal place as well. So 3 different ones. I actually, as we were talking about this before, I was reminded of, I had a conversation with a direct competitor of this company about 8 years ago, and he was completely against having any decimals at all. He just whole numbers, just give me the whole numbers. I wonder if his views change now, but it does link into this point, which is there is a brand and stylistic point to this as well as a psychological one. So we were trying to unpick the rationale for this. So do you want to say what we think the reasoning behind this is?
Yeah, so there's some classic menu engineering theory behind this. So for one, especially around numbers like close to like round numbers like 10 or 5, putting a 0.95 decimal place gets you as close to that number as possible without actually crossing the chasm. This is the just noticeable difference chasm. So guests are more likely to notice once you cross that chasm than if you stay just below it. But it's a fine balance, because if you do 0.99, that actually evokes like cheap discount value, and at a brand like Pizza Pilgrims, you don't want that. You just convince the guest that this is actually a premium pizza. So 0.95 is far enough away from the 0.99, but close enough to the next dollar value to kind of convince guests that this is really, really good value. Secondly, so the 0.5 and the 0.25 is really an interesting one. One of our theories, because the other 2 decimal points are 0.25, 0.75, and I guess 0.5 is, it reminds you, it's easy to calculate for the guests. It kind of reminds you of a clock. So thinking 3:15, thinking 2:30, quarter to 5. These are all things that we calculate in our head all the time already. So it would be very easy for them to kind of calculate the value of that particular pizza. And then the whole round number issue, this evokes kind of more premium, more upscale. And interestingly, they use it on the cheapest parts of the menu. So perhaps it's because the toppings, as an example, individually, they're not too expensive, but when you add them up as a whole, it could make a very premium pizza. This might be why they want to communicate a little bit more of a premium pricing equation.
Interesting concept. And we also note there's no currency symbol.
That's
as well.
right.
And I wonder, again, that if you have the currency symbol on there, that can make some people think more of money and become like prime them to be more spend conscious. But we also wondered, because there's so much visual activity on the menu, any opportunity where you might be able to remove some busyness is probably helpful, to give a bit of space and kind of allow the design to breathe a bit more. So pricing, a really interesting theme around this. Before we go into some execution ones, I just want to kind of make a quick call out on a couple of things. One is, you'll have already seen this already, but just the really cool designs that have been put everywhere by Mr. Stefano. Because what they've done is they've got pictures and visuals in there without them being photographs. And we talked about this last week, how with photographs it is a balance, because it can cheapen the product, and also when someone sees a photo, they want that on their plate. You've got very little room for error there. So with this, you're just kind of evoking the ingredients and got some, visual cues in there, but they actually use kind of pictures and imagery, which I think is really cool. And then the other area as well I wanted to pick up on was, there's no mention of dessert at all on this menu.
That's right.
And why is that, Matt?
Again, this is classic menu engineering. So average check is higher when you have a separate dessert menu that's offered to guests at the end of the meal. The reason for that is, if you're someone who loves dessert, okay, and you are presented with the full menu and dessert is included, your eyes will look at what's offered in the desserts. If you see something you like, you know you're going to order it later, and it might prevent you from ordering a starter or a side or some of the other upsell opportunities. So if you remove that opportunity and make the dessert menu separate, those people with sweet tooths who are highly likely to order dessert, they're going to order as they usually would, not even thinking about dessert. And then when the dessert menu comes at the end of the meal, they can't resist a chocolate cake or a cannoli, something like that.
Guilty as charged. That is me all the way. Okay, so we've covered a lot about this. I mean, we could talk for hours about this menu. We really love it. It's really cool. Just about how it looks and some of the kind of psychology behind it. We'll finish though by talking a bit about the execution, and I think there was one area, the size was one you wanted to call out when it came down to execution considerations.
For sure. Yeah, so this menu is really simplified in a smart way when kind of designing the kitchen and thinking about the space in these restaurants. Because they use the high temperature wood burning oven, it takes up a lot of space. They also make their dough fresh in house, so you need a station just constantly churning out this pizza dough so that they can make a ton of pizzas during service. So that means that when they're thinking about their different kitchen stations, they've actually removed the line. The pizza oven is the primary. There's a dough station. There's a cold station, or like garde-manger, that takes care of all the salads and maybe some of the desserts, that type of thing. And they actually have a couple of the sides that are all from the fryer station. So if you look at the cacio and pepe balls or the smoked mozzarella bites, these are all fried dishes and don't require a grill or like a traditional kind of element where you would need lots of pots and pans and create a ton of mess for the dish pit as well. So fry station, because there's only a few dishes that also require the fry station, it is one of those stations that doesn't require a full-time person manning that station during a slower or like slower meal period or in between shifts, it could kind of be split with Gardmo or maybe the pizza station or dough station. So they designed this whole menu based on what they had available in their kitchen. And yeah, this kind of comes through in the type of menu offering that you see here.
So all in all, Matt, this is one of those menus, like I said at the beginning, it has managed to transcend just layout and just design. It's really got the essence of the kitchen, of the ingredients, of the mission, of the founding story. It's all included and as part of this design, and I think they've done a fantastic job at bringing all of that to you. And some of it you notice straight away, but other parts of it it makes you think, and you have to think about it. And you can imagine people kind of going into this restaurant and it's sticking with them. It's like it's there in there because it's like reading a good book. It's like something that you're watching a film, you think about it for a couple of days after. So really important that we brought this particular one to you today. And I think that's it for our insights.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun, it's loud. One last little shout out is kind of all the yellow in the negative space. Yellow really is kind of the fun color. It evokes just kind of easygoing, laid back time, like really, really fun time. So yeah, just really interesting. All the subtle details, they circle their guest pizza, LTO. Yeah, really interesting menu design, and again, we could talk about it forever, but yeah, we'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. So thank you for listening today. Next week, we don't know which restaurant we're going to be doing.
We do not.
So if you've got an idea for who that should be, post in the comments. It could be your restaurant, it could be a restaurant you've dined in recently, but anything where you found some interesting, visually stunning, or just kind of curious menus, we'd love to hear about it. So let us know, like and subscribe so you get all the latest. We'll be releasing one every week, so you'll be the first to know. That's it from us. Talk to you soon.